We're talking about tens of thousands of years of our cultural heritage here, so, you know, this is a sort of evidence to say that our people have been here.
Once the new dam's built, all of that area will be underwater, so the fact that we're documenting it now means that we'll have that information forever. We can continue telling and re-looking at things and telling the story about what was happening there before the European people came or before the dam was built.
Doesn't matter how many artefacts you find in that, every artefact has its own story.
We've done an archaeological survey of the whole area that's going to be impacted by the dam construction, the enlarged Cotter Dam. We've now identified a number of sites where we think it's worth digging to go down in specific layers, and then we've taken samples of that material and we're sieving that to see what sort of material, how many artefacts are coming out subsurface. Because we know that often when we do an archaeological survey, we miss a lot of the stuff because it's below the ground and we can't see it. And so there we're doing a by hand methodology where we're digging with shovels and trowels. And again we're taking out material and we're wet sieving everything to see what sort of artefacts come out.
Ooh. We could have an artefact. I'm not quite sure. They'll have to go through the sieves. So this is a spur line, a low spur line running down to what was formerly the Cotter River, and it's a very likely spot for Aboriginal sites to be found. So we put a baseline right down the centre of the spur, and we're running these perpendicular lines off the baseline, and we're putting pits at 20-metre intervals along this transect here. And so far we've dug one pit up there to a depth of 20 centimetres. We at this stage don't know what is being found in these pits because that's being all the soil is being processed by people down there at the sieve station. They're wet sieving, removing artefacts from the sieves and bagging them, and then they'll go away for analysis.
The sort of stuff that we've been finding in these upper ridgeline contexts, they're not massively huge sites. We're not finding thousands of artefacts, for example, so they're quite sparse. But they are still telling us an interesting story, because the Aboriginal people who are camping here might have been doing different things. These were probably interim campsites up here, and the main campsites where most of the family was and all of the activity and family activity was probably further down where the river is now, or where the dam is now. So we're not expecting huge numbers of artefacts in these sites up on the ridge, but we're still very interested in the sort of stuff that we might find.
This area out here was mainly to do with the men. Yeah, there were women and children out here too, but because we're sort of at the foothills of the Brindabellas, and that's where all the men did all their initiations up there. So this area here to me would have been like an area where you waited until you were called, maybe. So it is a very special area, yeah.
The archaeologists can do some archaeological assessment of the material that's found, but the representative Aboriginal organisation reps, they're here and they can tell us about the cultural values of the sites here. So their role is to look at these sites and the sort of material that they're finding and to provide a cultural values assessment. So both those values, the archaeological or scientific values and the cultural values, are then all brought together in a single report, and we report that to the Heritage Council.
The stories will come together, yeah, because you get the ideas of where your people were along these rivers and that around here, you know, and where they sat, where they camped. It does. It puts the thoughts of history, you know, about where they lived and that. Yeah, it's good.
Well, I'm a Ngunnawal person. I'm a Ngunnawal woman, so to me it's really personal. You can understand the way our people lived in traditional times. They lived off natural resources.
So every time we finished this bit. Just
It really empowers me because, you know, my people were here and I feel as though my ancestors, they'd be glad to see me here, looking after their things. But, you know, I feel very privileged to be chosen to be here. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I guess our job is to basically document what is there now, and so that in the future people can go back and say, okay, before the dam was inundated or built again, we know that there was possibly this many people living out there, and they were doing camping and making tools and things like that. So our job is basically to document and record the cultural heritage of the Cotter Dam area. In terms of sort of the artefacts are coming out, we've got lots and lots and lots, so that's really good. We're going to be able to tell a really good story. And some things are really in good condition because all of that area has been used for forestry in the past, so it's all been heavily disturbed, but they're still there. So that means we can say, we can still glean that information that people were camping here, they were doing this here, and we've found some broken axe heads and things like that, which are the more significant and larger artefacts that aren't found sort of very frequently in most sites. And also a lot of the smaller things will be able to tell us what sort of fishing or hunting they were doing and what sort of artefacts they were making, so what the activities sort of leads to. And the whole assemblage will tell us a really good story because it's not been heavily developed other than the forestry. It's still out there to find and to tell the story. That's, I guess, the not surprising, but the really good thing about the Cotter area.
Yeah.
It would have just fitted in there.
And it just had just a
concave.
concave. Yeah.
That's how I spotted it, was sitting on the ground.
Do you think it was for artefacts, grinding? Do you think like axe heads or something like that?
Really does.
Yeah.
So at the moment we're at Naval Officer's lab in Fyshwick, and we've just been looking at all of the artefacts that we collected for the Cotter Dam project. So the stone tools and axe heads and hammer stones and all of those things that we collected right back to the beginning of the project. So right back when we were doing monitoring for the geotech works that happened when they were first designing the dam, right up into all of the salvage works where we collected where the construction area was and also the inundation area for the dam. All of those artefacts we laid out on the table for everyone to see, and I think there were about, I didn't even count the boxes, there were so many, but a lot of artefacts, well over 3,000 I think. So we had all of the registered Aboriginal organisations come along today, as well as representatives from the ACT Heritage Unit, ACTU, BWA, and myself from Naval Officer, just to talk about what is going to happen to the artefacts now, because obviously we've collected a whole heap of material, and we now want to decide what's to happen with that material. We don't really want it to stay in our lab, but there's no purpose for it to stay in our lab, so we're really trying to get from the Aboriginal organisations what their feelings are, and from our discussions today it's obvious that they want some things to be kept for display purposes and for educational purposes, and also most of the material to go back out to site at the Cotter to be returned to country, to be back in contact with the land.
Come from them, that. Just put them away from them, and we can agree on like an area for them to go. So if you
back out there, as nature would like it to be.
Do we want them buried a little bit so no one can find them, but we can find them?
They should be buried in the vicinity of where they were found.
Where they were originally found.
No, I agree with that. Right there.
So
We do.
we want to create a whole new series of sites,
Yeah.
rather than creating one site.
Yeah.
That's how
Exactly
we feel as well.
You got to look at the spiritual side of things.
Yeah.
That's what I would look at. So there's some artefacts I would like to return to country, whether they're underwater or not, but there's some artefacts we'd like to use for educational, not all, but for educational cultural awareness.
So there's two things going on there, isn't it? It's which artefacts we keep, and then where for that purpose of education, ongoing education, and who's going to hang on to those and where they're going to be stored, etc., etc. And then there's the other side of it is the artefacts that we don't keep is return to country. Yeah.
very important that, you know, you guys feel that this is a very culturally sensitive process and that everything's done according to your laws. And so, you know, from Actu's perspective, it's very important that that happens. And, you know, I just need your...
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've certainly talked to actually.
No, I'm taking it. Hey, look, do you want to be down there over here? Oh, this is lovely.
Yeah, good choice, James.
This is lovely.
This place up here feels a lot better than that. And also we want to have a spot for the artefacts to go so future generations can come to a happy place and that to have a look at what we found out here over the last couple of years.
You can't even walk in there without getting shot.
Even from a scientific point of view, and that, like, places like this are better for the artefacts to go back instead of like hidden away down in a gully or something.
Yeah.
We just got to do the right things by the spirits.
It's a bit smaller than ours.
Yeah, but some people say, oh, that's too small and that, but that's where the kids had to learn to do stuff too.
But you know, you still want something a little bit delicate if you're going to
When
do
you're
some...
retouching something.
Yeah, retouch or...
Your thumb fits beautifully in that little, there's a little
Well, like you
indentation
wouldn't get,
there.
like, the bigger one to do a little piece on something smaller.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
That's a beauty.
Yeah.
I teach my kids now about Ngunnawal culture, and also teach them about respecting the land and looking after the land, because since day one we've always looked after the land, loved it, nurtured it, because to me it's all about Mother Earth. You respect Mother Earth will respect you. Bura Buja.